Food is something that we don't really sit back and talk about like this often. But I really love to forecast the trends that are happening in food and what I see. I mean, one thing that I do more than anything else is eat. And I live in New York City, and I'm out eating all the time. So I'm seeing trends happen. And then when I'm traveling for work and going to other cities, I'll start to see these trends trickle down into different cities. What's really fun, and the big trend I'm seeing most, is that food has kind of taken this whole 360 thing, and everything that's new is old again. And my grandmother was right. That she always knew best. It was, we're seeing food come back where you're spending $85 for macaroni and cheese at the Waverly Inn in New York City. It's crazy. Who does that? $85 for macaroni and cheese? But you're paying for comfort food, and that's what we all grew up eating. So I love that the theme of this talk for all of us is back to our roots. Now, a lot of people, I'm sure, will talk about their moms and grandmothers and whomever. My mother was the worst cook on the planet. She's a surreal oil painter, an old hippie. She lived in a cave in Greece. She's, you know, a little different. My grandmother was more of the beauty queen type on my mother's side. Also couldn't cook, had Thanksgiving dinner catered once. But then on my dad's side, my grandma Moore, who I've actually named some recipes after, was an amazing cook, and she grew up on a farm. So when I think of back to our roots, I actually think of the way that I cook on my show on Food Network, which is 5-Ingredient Fix. So if you haven't seen it, it's 5-ingredient recipes, which, let me tell you, sometimes I wish I called it 6-ingredient fix or 7-ingredient fix. But you know, the interesting thing is it taught me to look at food in a whole nother way. I'm often asked why the number 5. Well, to be honest, because Food Network told me so. But also, it was kind of an experiment that we collaborated on to come up with a number that was really few ingredients. Oh, can y'all not hear me? Did y'all not hear any of that? Do I just start over? All right, don't worry, you didn't miss anything if you didn't hear me before. Anyway, so my, where was I? The 5-ingredient thing, right? Isn't that what I was talking about? So anyway, so 5 ingredients. The reason the number 5 works is because if you look at somebody's recipe and go to the store and see how many ingredients you can remember. I had every friend of mine, every family member, I was like, go to the store, see how many ingredients you can remember. 5 was kind of the universal number. It was because you can count them on one hand. So that was a handy thing, but also it was few enough that it still seems simple, but it's also enough that I can make almost anything with it. You know, the interesting thing is what I've learned about this is I want people to see the 5-ingredient recipes as guidelines. Even though I have a cookbook out and I should be telling you that you should go out and buy it, I don't believe that cookbooks are something that you should be stuck to. Really, food is about choosing ingredients. And what separates a good chef from a great chef are great ingredients. I can give you all the same 5-ingredient recipe here, and depending on the 5 ingredients, how each of you go choose those same ingredients, it will change the dish in the end, which is an amazing thing that I've learned through 5-ingredient cooking, is that, you know, I can make it and it can taste great, but if you make it and you don't choose great 5 ingredients, the same 5 ingredients that I'm telling you to choose, if you don't choose them wisely, or if you choose to cook, you know, a green tomato, Vidalia onion gratin when green tomatoes aren't in season, then it's not gonna taste great. So, you know, when I think of back to our roots, I think of the way we ate on farms and where the ingredient is highlighted. And everybody's mama and grandmama were a great cook because they didn't really have to do anything to the ingredients. You know, that's the great thing. To be a great chef, you just have to have some great great ingredients, and you don't have to alter them too much. I mean, imagine a peach in the middle of summer in Georgia, and it's just like giving when you pick it off a tree and you spin it, and it's just the juices are starting to run down your arm, and it's so sweet and it's fragrant in the air, and you take one bite. Really? Do you want to mess up that peach? It doesn't need anything. It's good. So that's what I find back to our roots to mean to me, and that's what I've defined my food philosophy from. After I trained at the French Culinary Institute, I staged at numerous restaurants with some amazing chefs, and I chose to go to the French Culinary Institute because it's some of the best deans living today in the world. Jacques Pepin, Jacques Torres, Alain Seac, Andre Soltner. And then all of them said, great, now we've taught you to cook and you've learned from other chefs, go to France. And that's where you're really gonna learn to cook. And they sent me to farmhouses in Southwest France. And if y'all can't tell, I'm a redneck from the South. And my French is really bad. So I was wandering the farmlands of Southwest France trying to figure out how to cook. There's no grocery stores, there's nothing. So I had to figure out how to knock on farm doors and say, poulet, and I'm looking for a chicken. And they're like pointing up the road, and I'm thinking, oh no. And it's like a 5-mile bike ride to the next house for me to get an ingredient that I need. So I learned quickly to cook with whatever I had and very few ingredients. And I realized that it was the best cooking I'd ever done. And it was because I was literally pulling in season. Oh my goodness, Simon's gonna kill me. Did I use the word season? Local. But I used literally ingredients that were growing and ready and begging for me to put on a plate. And then I call it a dance. You know, when I write 5-ingredient recipes, it's the one question I'm never asked, and I'm surprised. How do you write a 5-ingredient recipe? Early in my show, you'll see that I started out by taking a lot of classics like coq au vin and breaking it down to 5. Beef bourguignon, breaking it down to 5. You did not want to know me when I was trying to do those. Like, I was not a happy person. It was really difficult. But I was able to do it. It's a lot of technique, and that's what I think a recipe should give you, is technique. That's why I say, you know, still buy the cookbook, read it. Just don't follow it to a T. But when it comes to the 5, I realized it was better, instead of trying to break things down to 5, take an ingredient, highlight it, add a few more ingredients that will dance with it. So I'm always looking for a balance. And to me, the biggest compliment that I could ever hear is that was a balanced bite, that it had enough acidity, enough sweetness, enough saltiness. I'm looking for textures like creaminess and crunchy. You want that perfectly balanced bite. You know, sometimes we want to reach for salt when something just needs a little pop of lemon to bring it all out. It's a dance, and in 5-ingredient cooking, it's a very delicate one, because one wrong ingredient and it's off, you know? So it's easier for me to figure out that dance. I can figure out what's missing and change out an ingredient. And I found that when I take ingredients from letting the ingredient that I choose be the star and add to it, and just have some ingredients that will accompany the star and highlight it, then that dance becomes a really beautiful, wonderful bite. And then I look really good, and I didn't do much of anything. You know, that's how I think the key to me for being a great chef is taking that peach and maybe putting a little bit of fresh thyme with it, maybe a ginger ice that I freeze, and putting it all together, done, and it's delicious. You know, the same thing I've done, you know, peaches and a little bit of bourbon and lardo, which I recently did on Quest for the Fresh. My new venture is moving into the seeking of these ingredients, because I've now found that people are learning so much more. Everybody knows so much more about food than we did 20 years ago. The base knowledge is up here, you know? And so when I go to start to talk to people about food, now the questions are, okay, well, I know what prosciutto di Parma is, and I don't have to explain to you that it's a thinly sliced ham that you typically would see in Italy. Most people will know the basic ingredients, but now they're asking me how to choose them. So I find that people are seeking out better ingredients. We're demanding better food for our bodies. And we are going back to our roots of the way that our grandparents and great-grandparents ate. And they all ate what was, coming from nearby farms. They didn't have these massive super Targets and Walmarts that have food that's flown in from all around the world. I mean, when's the last time you went to one of those places and grabbed a strawberry or a tomato in December, and it tasted like a strawberry or a tomato, like you remember from when you were a kid? You remember the last time, like when you take a strawberry and it's incredible, that incredible sweet strawberry bite, or like the peach I described earlier. You're not going to find that at those massive stores that's flown in from all over the world. They're missing a little something. They're not as beautiful, they're not as bold, and they're not dancing for you. So when you get those incredible ingredients, you realize, oh yeah, that's what a strawberry is supposed to taste like. That's what a tomato is supposed to taste like. I mean, think about one of the most famous salads in the world, the caprese. It's fresh tomato that is deliciously unseasoned. Again, Simon's definitely going to kill me. Fresh mozzarella, basil, and that's it. A little bit of reduced balsamic if you want. And it's incredible. Simplicity is where back to our roots is taking us, I think. And I think that, macaroni and cheese, you can do it in 4 ingredients. Don't pay $85 for it. That's my random little side note. But one of my best dishes I've ever written was my Grandma Moore's creamed corn. And it's also one of the most downloaded recipes of mine on the Food Network website. And it's 2 ingredients. It's fresh corn and bacon. And the corn itself has natural cornstarch in it. You cut the cheeks of it off, you turn your knife around, you milk that cob, and all the natural cornstarch in there comes out and does all the work for you. 2 ingredients, one of the best dishes I ever made. But let me give you a hint. You can't make it when corn's not sweet and good, because then you got to add a whole lot of other stuff to it. So 5-ingredient cooking to me is exactly, it's what my Grandma Moore made. And I'm not reinventing the wheel here, and I'm not inventing anything new. I'm going right back to my roots.